We might not have any forwards, but we still have games coming thick and fast. The next one up is Arsenal versus Leicester, and today is a preview pod with a special focus on how are we going to cope without Kai Havertz and Gabriel Martinelli. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. I hope you are well wherever you are and you have enjoyed a week off of Arsenal. It's been a busy season, it's been a lot of games as evidenced by our injury issues, but we have enjoyed maybe a couple of days off from football, although we've had plenty of bad news, so I'm saying that and I'm thinking maybe people haven't enjoyed it quite so much, but games are back. They are back tomorrow. Arsenal versus Leicester is the first one. Today is the preview pod of that game. Haven't done one of these in a while, simply because we've had games every couple of days, every 3 days basically. So there haven't been time for too many preview pods. So this is nice to get a chance to preview a game and kind of look ahead and see what we might face in 24 hours time. It's 12:54 as I sit here and record it. We will be in the thick of the first half this time tomorrow, so let's hope the early kickoff is an advantage for us and we can put our feet up and rest players after that for the rest of the weekend and they can enjoy watching some football. I'm going to go through Mikel Arteta's pre-match press conference before kind of working through some ideas about how we might play without Kai Havertz, without Gabriel Martinelli, so stick around for that. Going to be talking through some interesting tactical ideas and seeing what we might do. There's lots going around on the internet. Ultimately, there's only one man in charge, is Mikel Arteta, but I'm going to put my 2 pence forward as well. As far as Mikel Arteta's pre-match press conference went, not too many surprises. I mean, we obviously had the confirmation the other day about the terrible Kai Havertz news, and that blew me away. It shocked me, that news. I'm coming back to talk about this a couple of days later, but we went through that period of Kai Havertz has a hamstring injury scare. And when you hear that, an injury scare, you think, okay, then it might be like Gabriel Martinelli's. Certainly my reaction was, hopefully that's only 2 or 3 weeks or maybe a month at worst, and he's done a little pull and we'll get him back at a similar time as we get Saka back. I was not expecting the season-ending news. I mean, how do you get a season-ending hamstring injury in training in Dubai of all places? And I've heard it spoken about of, are we training too hard? I think Paul Merson came out and said it's unacceptable to get a hamstring injury that ends your season in training. I have to think, especially off Mikel Arteta's his quotes this morning, I have to think that there was probably something bubbling under the surface, because he speaks about the injury and he was asked specifically how did it happen, and he said that Kai Havertz was basically reaching to block a ball after a kind of training drill or set piece, he said, and he was reaching to block a shot, and that's when he felt his hamstring go. To me, that wouldn't, I'm not a medical expert. I did do sports science, I did do sports injuries and stuff, so I have a bit of background knowledge. That would be a very, very strange way to have a hamstring injury that requires surgery. That's a lot. So, and we have seen him, I think, at the end of the Wolves game, before he collapsed on the pitch due to exhaustion. I think we've seen him grabbing his hamstring a little bit. I worry a little bit that Kai Havertz has allowed this to go on for too long, or maybe we've kind of forced him into it. I don't know, but I think he probably felt something a few weeks ago, and actually he's allowed that to accumulate in a kind of heroic way, trying to play on for the team. He knows Gabby Jesus is not there. He knows Bakayo's not there. He was kind of the main guy for that bit, and he wanted to be that main guy. And I think ultimately, it's gone wrong for him being the hero. The exact quote from Mikel was he was going to stop a shot after a set piece, then stretched the leg and felt his hamstring. So not in a high intensity sprint or anything like that, just in a stretch, which can pull a hamstring, but to require a surgery, I mean, he must have stretched a long way if it was just that. I tend to think there's probably something more going on there, and he was probably sporting something for a little while. Let's go to some positive news from Mikel Arteta's press conference, and let's talk about a positive injury story, because they have been really, really few and far between recently. But when he was asked whether Ben White might be involved, he did give us a positive answer. We've seen Ben White in the Dubai training pictures. That's obviously fantastic news for us, but I certainly wasn't expecting him back for Leicester. But Mikel Arteta has confirmed that he's been training more regularly. They will still have to manage his load, but he is going to be available for the Leicester game. So, I presume he'll be on the bench for the next couple of weeks, 5 minutes here, then 15, 25, a half, that sort of thing, building him back up. It's fantastic that we're going to have Ben White back. Jurrien Timber's done a fantastic job, but, I think Ben White coming back will be massive. It should help Martin Odegaard out, right? We need Martin Odegaard to come good. Let's get him his mates back. I'm really excited to have Ben White back, not just because I think he's absolutely world class, but he's one of my favourite players and a real personality in the dressing room. So yeah, really delighted that he'll be coming back, and it's good news, that one in a season of a lot of blows. We have to recognise when there's a win, and Ben White coming back will absolutely be a win. We currently have, I guess, let's say 2 recognised forwards fit out of 6. I'm not going to include Ethan Nwaneri in that, although we know he probably will play right wing on Saturday. However, he was originally kind of thought of as a central midfielder, a number 10, number 8 deputy to Martin Odegaard. He is absolutely doing a fantastic job on the right wing, and I think he is probably for the foreseeable a right winger, a Bukayo Saka analogue. But ultimately, he is not a prescribed senior forward. Out of the 6 senior forwards we have 2 free. And that led to the questions, and rightly so, after the Kai Havertz injury, because the window had slammed shut. Will Arsenal go back into the free agent market? And, there's been the quotes going around, not quotes, but the kind of posts and the kind of half joking, half serious posts about, should we bring back Lucas Perez? He's a free agent. Should we bring back Carlos Vela? He's a free agent. Should we even go in for Diego Costa, who's also a free agent? I don't think that one would be quite as popular as bringing Carlos Vela back, because we don't like Diego Costa, for one, but needs must, right? It is a really bad situation. If we have to get Diego Costa, maybe we do. That could be an option. However, when Mikel Arteta was asked about the free agent market, he wasn't as committal as some of those posts online might have been. We'll explore every possible situation and make a decision from there. Very brief from Mikel on that one. Didn't want to give anything away. I think that is highly unlikely. Highly, highly unlikely that we go in for anyone. I would imagine that they're looking at that all the time. The free agent market is the simplest way to get a player in. Suddenly you don't have 3 parties to make happy, you have 2. And taking the other club out of it, if there's a free agent out there, why not? Why wouldn't you go for it? So I assume that they're looking at that all the time, but ultimately if a player is a free agent, it basically means he's not been up to the quality at another squad. If you're not up to the quality at another squad, there's very few squads where you can, take a step down and reach Arsenal's level, So I don't think that's going to be an option. It would be a move of desperation, and I can't see them going for anyone apart from Carlos Vela. There might be an element of, nostalgia in that one. But I just really don't think that we'll be doing anything there. Let's talk about Raheem Sterling then, because there was a little question of kind of how can Mikel Arteta get Raheem Sterling started? How can he get him productive, let's say? Because there was a recognition that he hasn't really produced what's been required of him. I was of the opinion that this was going to be an okay signing for us. Not the one we wanted, but I thought, will Raheem Sterling get 5 goals, a couple of assists, and contribute more than Reece Nelson? Probably. Definitely proved wrong by that. But now we need him. Now we need him to go nuclear, come good, and start scoring goals and assisting goals. Mikel Arteta has spoken on this today when he got asked the question, and he said Raheem Sterling's been involved on merit, which I think is an interesting thing. It's not what we are seeing, so I think he's out there backing his player, making sure that he feels confident, because we're going to need him to come good. So, maybe raising Raheem Sterling's confidence a little bit there. And yeah, he spoke about how we're going to need Raheem Sterling, and actually he'll get more exposure, he'll get more minutes, and he is going to have to earn his transfer, I guess. He's not really going to have to earn his place. His place is going to be given to him, but he is going to have to earn that transfer and kind of speak about and perform in a way that matches how Mikel Arteta speaks about him. So yeah, let's hope for that. Going to take a short break here. That's everything from Mikel Arteta's press conference that I wanted to cover. Going to take a short break, and when I come back, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how we might line up against Leicester and what Leicester are like as a team and what we should expect tomorrow afternoon. Hello everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're like me, you finished watching an Arsenal game and you're already looking for the next bit of Arsenal coverage you can find. If that sounds like you, follow or subscribe to Arsenal Unfiltered on your podcast app of choice right now to make sure you don't miss a single episode from me. I'm here 3 times a week, reviewing matches and covering Arsenal news, and I'm so excited to have you all here as well. Thank you very much. Welcome back to part 2 of this Arsenal Unfiltered preview pod for the Arsenal versus Leicester game tomorrow afternoon at 12:30. Very, very exciting to see the Arsenal again. We've been through Mikel Arteta's press conference already, so let's talk a little bit about Leicester, our opponents for tomorrow afternoon. And let's just say Leicester aren't having the kind of return to the Premier League that I think their fans would have hoped. There is a really big discussion, I think, wider than this game and kind of for the Premier League in general. Has the gap got too big? Because if teams can't come up from the Championship and compete, and certainly a team like Leicester would be a team with the infrastructure that they have and some of the players that they have, you'd expect if they came up from the Championship, they would be able to do a little bit better than they have done so far this year. They have really, really struggled in the Premier League. And the Cups, to be fair, they've just gone out of the FA Cup, haven't they, to Manchester United. I mean, brutally, to be fair. They did perform well in that game and got undone by a offside goal. A little bit criminal if you ask me, but c'est la vie, that's where they're at. Their recent form in the Premier League has not been very good at all. Of the last, I think, 8 games, they've lost 7 and won 1. The only one they won was against Tottenham. They have taken defeats against Liverpool, Manchester City, Newcastle, Villa that you'd expect, but then games against Everton, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Wolves, they're games where they absolutely need to be getting results, and they haven't got them. They've taken some big defeats in those. 4-0 versus Everton, 3-0 versus Wolves, 2 versus Palace and Fulham. They have not been scoring particularly freely in recent times, and they have been leaking goals as well. On that, a stat that I could not believe, they have 1 clean sheet all year. 1. That is the worst in the Premier League. So if we're going to play a game without our strikers, without any forwards, I think this might be the best one that we could have immediately. I mean, they've conceded 2.2 goals per match in comparison to Arsenal's 0.9. So, yeah, not a good position for them defensively. Obviously, these numbers are skewed by the fact that they're not as good a team as Arsenal. They do not have as much quality, but, you know, that is still very indicative of their defensive quality in relation to their overall quality as well. They don't score many either. 1 goal per match. I mean, they've done okay. I think they've got. Let me just double check how many they've got. They've got a fair number of goals, but 1 per match is not really enough. I think it's actually 24, so it's a little over 1 per match. And as well, one thing that also amazed me, I associate kind of Ruud van Nistelrooy with a manager who really, really tries to play well, play with the ball, and press a little bit and try and be a bit aggressive, even though his team are not great. Leicester are bottom of the Premier League table in terms of possession won in the final third per match. Obviously, that is a little bit skewed by the time they spent with Steve Cooper, but to be last with 3 possessions won in the final third per match in comparison to Arsenal's 5.7 and Bournemouth's 6.1, the 2 teams topping that table. That's quite incredible. And Ruud van Nistelrooy clearly hasn't made a great deal of change in how they press, etc., etc. So, yeah, I don't think what we're looking at here is a really, really high quality team. What we are looking at is a team that caused us a few issues at the Emirates, so we have to remember that and remember the 2 James Justin goals we conceded, the incredible volley and then a sloppiness with a cross across our box. So, we need to still be on our game, and I think that's going to be important for us. They also have Jamie Vardy, who, 7 goals in the league this year. ultimately, as much as I wish you could count out Jamie Vardy, you're never going to be able to count out Jamie Vardy. He is a fox in the box, a predator goal scorer, and whenever teams have that, you really, really must be wary. The other thing you must be wary of is Leicester are sort of fighting for their lives right now. They have 17 points from 24 games. They're 2 behind Wolves. West Ham are some way past that. West Ham and Everton are some way past that with 27 points. So Leicester really, they are either going down or they're sending Wolves down. I can't see any hope for Ipswich or Southampton. So one of those other 3 teams is going to survive in terms of Wolves, Leicester and Ipswich, and 2 of them are going to go down. Leicester don't want to be the ones that go down. They are in a real precarious scrap here. And that is a dangerous place to play a team. They have something to go backs against the walls and really fight for. That being said, I think we should have plenty of quality. I don't think they have scored enough goals to be a real attacking threat to us. I think their kind of style is growing under Ruud van Nistelrooy, but it's still not where it needs to be. I think we will see a lot of the ball. We will keep a lot of the ball, and I think we should win this game. But let's talk about how we'll line up and what we'll do. Obviously, our form in the Premier League has been, it's upturned. We had the Newcastle result, which was disappointing, but the Manchester City 5-1 win was obviously really, really important for us and gave us a bit of a boost. Liverpool have dropped points against Everton last night as well. The night before. So that's really important as well. I'm not going to talk about whether we're in the title race or not. I don't think that's a useful discussion right now. But what I am going to talk about is how do we line up without Kai Havertz, without Bukayo Saka. And I think really there is a couple of solutions. One, the most obvious one, is we keep playing how we are and we just risk the 3 that are available. So I would presume that would be Trossard through the middle, Raheem Sterling off the left, and Ethan Nwaneri off the right. Now, I think that is the most likely solution that Mikel Arteta will go for. I think it would be bold of him to change the system very, very early in this experiment. I think those players will be looking at this and going, okay, this is a chance for us to step up. In the same way, we're looking at it as fans as, how are these guys going to step up? The players will be reversing that in their head and be confident and be ready to go and want to prove their point that actually they can lead the line for Arsenal, or they can be the first choice wingers for Arsenal. So hopefully they are in that mindset and they can perform like that. I think that is the most likely way we will line up. Another way I like and think could work is the Merino solution where he goes quite high. So you may have seen this going around, actually keeping the back four as it is, Partey in the 6, Rice and Ødegaard in their usual spots, and having Merino in that central area as well to kind of join when he can, perhaps is probably the best way of saying it, and have Trossard and maybe Raheem Sterling as like a 2 up front who will go out wide, perhaps Trossard and Nwaneri who will go out wide, and Merino will allow for an overload in the midfield, having 4 players in there against the Leicester's 3, and will progress through that overload, and then Merino will go and join that final line, or be the player who, when we're being pressed, he goes high, joins Trossard and Sterling, or Trossard and Nwaneri up front, and he provides the outlet. I quite like that, and I hope that makes sense how I've explained that. It feels like a good solution. It feels like something that would allow us to keep a lot of pressure high up the pitch, because we would have another player in the middle there who would help us win the ball back quite high, and he would help us manage the interior very, very well. And of course, then when we are in possession, it creates the central overload, and if we are in the final phase of possession, he can then join the attack and be a box crasher, get on the end of Martin Ødegaard crosses, get on the end of Ethan Nwaneri crosses. That feels like a really nice solution. The other solution that I've thought about instead of that is, again, keep the back 4 as it is, Partey and Rice in a 2 in midfield with Ødegaard and Trossard up top, doing the kind of solution that we had before, where Kai Havertz and Trossard played as basically a double false 9, dropping in and rotating into the midfield when needed. And I actually quite like that as an idea. Now, look, those two up top are not going to give you the aerial threat that you need, and we would require Declan Rice to be really on it and get into the box late to get onto some crosses and do his work. However, I do like the idea of Ødegaard and Trossard repeating what Kai and Leo did when we first lost Bukayo, because actually Martin Ødegaard often operates very, very deep for us. Very deep. And whilst that's really important for us getting out, especially in games against Leicester, I don't think we necessarily need that. I think Saliba and Partey can do that job. And to get Ødegaard higher would give us a much higher quality player in the final third of the pitch, where I don't think he arrives enough, or he certainly isn't there enough for me. So I just wonder, is there a world where we do that, Ødegaard and Trossard are up front, and we see more output from Ødegaard? This is what we have to replace. We have to replace output. And we're not necessarily, unless we do the Merino solution I've just spoken about, we're not going to replace Kai Havertz's aerial output. Can we replace his intelligence? The next best player in this team for movement and intelligence is Martin Ødegaard. So why not try him up front and, recognise that he's had a tough season in terms of output. Let's get him further forward. Recognise the two teams are in front of us and say, we don't actually need you in the deeper phases of build-up. Let's get him forward. Let's get him into attacking positions and hope he can replace some of that output. That's just an idea. So yeah, I think they're the three options really in terms of a front three of Raheem Sterling, Trossard and Nwaneri. You keep the system as it is and you just roll the dice on those guys improving their output. You have a more kind of diamond system in the middle with Trossard and Sterling peeling out wide. Up front in a front two with Merino as a box crasher and enabling overloads in the midfield, or a three up front when we're in the final phase of possession, or you go into the 4-2-4 with Martin Ødegaard and Trossard in the middle, Raheem Sterling, Ethan Nwaneri out wide. We allow Declan Rice and Thomas Partey along with Saliba and Gabriel to do all of that build up, and we say to Martin Ødegaard, go up front, do the rotation, drop into the 10 when needed, and see if we can generate some output for you. That's how I would play. Ultimately, I think Leicester probably aren't good enough to threaten us even without the strikers. So I'm going to go for an Arsenal 2-0 win. I think Trossard gets a goal. I think Ødegaard gets a goal. And yeah, 2-0. I'm going to say no goals from corners, although I'm sure they will have been working on that very, very hard. And I do think we're going to have an interesting game state battle. Because I think if this gets to the point where we're 60 minutes in and it's still 0-0, or even Leicester have snuck a goal and it's 1-0, we'll be looking around going, where is the game-changing quality here? However, if we get an early goal, if we take an opportunity, shoot early, get a deflection, whatever, I do think that the team will settle. I think that there will be a much more calmness in the group, and I think game state will really matter in the sense of just making sure that there isn't a narrative coming out at the end of this game. We can't have a narrative of, that's the first game without Kai Havertz and Arsenal are not going to cope. Let's get an early goal and make sure that the team suddenly calm down and we're not going, okay, we're 60 minutes in and we don't have Kai and we don't have Bukayo and we still haven't scored. This is bad. Who's gonna help us out of this hole? So let's go and get an early goal. Let's get to 2-0, and I don't see us conceding. I think we're going to be really, really strong. My fantasy Premier League team reflects that for this week. And yeah, I think our problem without Kai and without Bukayo is going to come in the later games where we play Manchester United, Chelsea, and have the two Champions League ties. That is a run of 4 games that are really, really difficult just before April and through March. So I think that's where we're going to see more of a problem. In a game like this, I hope we can cope. I hope we've got some solutions. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mikel Arteta comes up with. Whilst this is obviously bad news and a bad position to be in, ultimately it will require some innovation. And innovation in your football team is always fun to watch and see what they come up with, see if there's a new solution. I'm going to leave it there. That's been the preview pod. Obviously, we've been through Arteta's press conference, how Leicester are going to play and what they bring, which unfortunately for them is not much. How we might play without our strikers and, that 2-0 prediction. That's the preview. Hopefully I'm right. Hopefully we have a great performance tomorrow and we beat Leicester. Like I said in the middle, if you have enjoyed this episode or any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please consider giving me a follow and dropping me a review wherever you get your podcasts from. It really, really helps and allows me to keep bringing you content 3 times a week. For now, thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.